Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Little Guys Home Technology Live Stream Podcast, which is sponsored by AudioQuest, Integra, and Golden Ear, three companies dedicated to high-performance audio and getting you the best sound possible. I'm David.
And I'm Evie.
And we're excited to bring you this live stream. We have special guest, Steve Ekblad, who's been a friend of the Little Guys for, I don't know, forever.
Forever.
Even when he worked at the competition, he was a friend of the Little Guys. Shh, don't tell them that. All right. The Little Guys is located 191st and LaGrange Road in Mokina, where Mokina meets I-80. Easy to get to. You can check us out at thelittleguys.com. You can email us at info@thelittleguys.com. And, we're all about bringing you new technology, talking about the state of current technology. We love that part of it, improving your existing equipment as well as getting some new equipment, which of course we are especially all about. And this week we're going to talk about something that we've paid attention to for a long time: line conditioning and surge protection. We did it how it kind of evolved for us, at least back in the day, from kind of those little plastic strip things, which most people think is a surge protector, to more sophisticated devices that can do line conditioning and do surge, what we called surge protection, and did it a variety of different ways. And the world has changed, and there's been advancements, and there's been some changes, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today with Steve. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Nice to have you here. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those changes and some products that are on the market now that frankly, for us, didn't exist to sell to consumers or to customers in the past. So, Ev, you had a question a minute ago. What most people assume is that a surge protector is kind of like a fuse, right? It's just that it's in line, and if it gets hit by a surge or a spike of voltage, that it gives up its life. Is that how you said it?
Well, it's a little bit at a time. It's sacrificing its life to protect your equipment.
Yeah.
So it's not just when the power goes out or there's a big bang and the whole neighborhood goes out. Constantly every day you're getting electric surges, and the voltage is going
right.
up.
It's not just a lightning strike.
No.
It's about the today's electrical system. The grid is not the greatest.
So I was under the impression that if you bought a good surge suppressor 5-10 years ago, that each time it's like giving a little bit of its life, and that eventually it's not dies.
Being effective.
It doesn't necessarily die, but it starts letting through a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So
this is just what I assume.
Probably the best place to start is to take a step back and say what a surge really is.
Yep.
And so basically what a surge is a spike in voltage. And our normal outlet has 120 volts in it at 60 cycles per second. That means if we could see it, we would see that it actually has a rotation between positive and negative every 60th of a second. And in that signal, we don't want to see anything else if we can help it. That's really what we want to make it to our gear. Now, there are two kinds of surges that come along, or spikes. One kind of spike is the kind that everybody's really familiar with, and that is the big lightning strike.
Yeah.
So lightning hits a pole somewhere or hits the grid, and a big spike of electricity enters your house. It can have a catastrophic effect. In fact, it can set fire to things.
Sure.
Even.
Yes.
And so what was done to prevent that very early on, I think the first one I ever saw was by GE Electronics. GE made a little cylinder that you could plug into the wall and then plug your gear into it, and it would stop the surge. Now, it didn't say that it was 100% going to do that, but it probably would. And if you went inside of it, it had a little device inside of it that was called an MOV. And an MOV looks like this. So it's just a little disc, and these discs basically what they do is they respond to voltage coming in one leg, and the other leg is attached to the ground. And as the voltage rises, and it rises fairly quick in a spike, this thing triggers on basically at 330 volts. So at 330 volts, it begins to conduct the electricity from this leg over to this leg, and there's a chemical substance inside that's allowing that to happen. There are some really good things about that. The wonderful thing about it doing that is that, of course, that voltage is not continuing down and going to your products. The negative side of it is that it's got to go up to 330 volts before it begins to work.
Yeah.
But going back to the types of surges that come in, the second type is actually generated within your home. And that's the type that most people are unaware of. And those surges can happen as with fairly high frequency. So let's say, for instance, that surges are created, not as big as the lightning one, but big enough to do damage. Surges are created by things like washing machines, dishwashers, garage door openers, HVAC, just a multitude of things in a house, basically anything with a motor in it. And those kind of surges come along often in the house. So sometimes they get referred to as electronic rusters. What they do is they cause devices to break down over time because they deliver constant battery of surges. What this device does well is that it does conduct the electricity over to ground. It can be sacrificial, though. And what that means is, let's say a big surge comes into it, it actually could give up its life and just blow up. The problem with that is here's our positive lead, here's our ground, they're still connected to the gear. So what that means is if this gives up its life, it's not conducting anymore the ground.
No longer
it's
effective.
over. Yeah. Now, you can see that happen in a number of ways. And some of the higher quality brands that are out there, they will make signs with a light or a noise that says, hey, I got a problem going on.
Yeah.
I've taken a bad hit. Other brands, cheap ones, sometimes just catch fire and start things on fire in the home.
We've seen several tests that way. You can go to YouTube and see some flamers.
Some really dangerous stuff. But there's a third factor of this that's probably even more concerning, and that is, and that would be for you guys especially because you're servicing the customer that's buying electronics from you, that as the voltage is conducted over here, this leg, the ground leg, is not supposed to have voltage on it. So our newer gear have things in them called computers. They're called microprocessors. And basically what microprocessors do is they are looking for a ground reference to keep their clock speed. So if they look at ground and see voltage, they do a thing called a lockup. So maybe one of your listeners might have had this experience. They're watching their satellite box. They touch the up channel button because the picture seems to have frozen. And all of a sudden they find out, oh, I can't go up or down. I can't raise or lower the volume. It's locked up. So they call in for service, and maybe you tell them, well, unplug and plug back in, or maybe you have some automated system that unplugs their stuff and plugs it back in. But really what happened is this device caused the problem. It was actually the savior and the persecutor at the same time because it's actually locking up their gear.
Sure.
So to further sort of make sense of all this, what SurgeX did is SurgeX came up with a different way of dealing with this problem. And the way that they deal with it is really unique because it doesn't put any voltage on the ground leg. So let me show you what they actually use. I've got one here. This is called a surge reactor. Now, they don't claim to do surge protection. What they claim is actually surge elimination.
I love that.
Now, what that means is no surges are getting through. Now, David, I think if I handed you this, you'd go, that's a little heavier than the other device that I was holding. Yeah. So this device actually is made up of a couple of components. It's very clever technology and perhaps something that couldn't have even been done when the MOV first came to market. So what this does is basically there's two coils inside stacked on each other. These coils are designed to handle pretty good amperage. This thing will handle 20 amps of constant voltage, if you will. And basically what it's designed to do is this. There's there's actually another component that's used with this. It's a circuit board. So I'm going to try and describe the whole thing, how it works. So what would happen is a electricity is always running through this.
Okay.
So 120 and 60 cycles happily and merrily go on their way through this system and never are affected. So normally when we get a surge or a spike, what happens is the MOV conducts all the electricity away, so it actually breaks the connection. What we do is we let the 120 and 60 cycles continue to go. However, if we think about surges and spikes, I think I mentioned they're very brief. They actually only take fractions of a second. In fact, their speed is around a megahertz or higher. So one of the things that we're able to do in thinking about solving this problem is they came up with basically a low-pass filter. So we've all perhaps known that in loudspeakers there's a thing called a crossover. And what the crossover does is directs the bass to the woofer and directs the highs to the tweeter. In the case of this, what we're doing is we're considering the 120 and 60 cycles, the bass, and we're going to basically block the highs, which would be the surge. So effectively what our first line of defense is, this has an induction action on the electricity and blocks everything above a certain frequency.
Got it.
So what that means is the surge can't even hammer its way through. If any does, the next component in the system is a board that has some circuitry on it, and it actually sends the 120 and 60 cycles off to the outlets and sends anything that remains back to another equal and opposite coil in here. So then they're magnetically basically canceled, and there's really nothing left.
Goes away.
Maybe a little tiny ripple, and then that goes into 3 capacitors that we have on the board, and it's released as 120 and 60 cycles over time. And so here's the unique thing about this. We have been in business making this for 21 years. In 21 years, we've never had a warranty replacement of one of these.
Wow.
So I think that states the effectiveness of it. And another thing is we have our own UL rating. And UL, I think most people are familiar with. Underwriter Labs is a company that tests products to make sure they're going to work. So, for instance, if you buy a vacuum cleaner and they claim that it'll last 10,000 hours, they're going to test it for 10,000 hours and see if it fails. What ours is we claim 0 surges, surge elimination. So what they did is they created a custom test for us, and the test took 1 day. So the test ran an entire day, and they bombarded it with surges. They did 1,000 surges of 6,000 volts at 3,000 amperes in a row. Now, that's a very odd series of numbers.
Serious,
so 6,000 volts, 3,000 amps, we can imagine if we touched that would not be good. It's coming into this and being 100% eliminated. Now, what's interesting about that specification is, first of all, no one else can achieve that. 1,000 times in a row pretty much says, okay, we could go on for a couple of years like this and it's not going to change. The 6,000 volts and 3,000 amps, though, is a very unique number because that was chosen because that's where the wire in the wall melts. Oh. So if the wires in the wall is melting, testing higher doesn't make any sense.
You got some other issues.
You got bigger problems. Yeah, we've got the house on fire.
All right, so we should make it clear. These are things that are this device is located inside of
every SurgeX.
Every SurgeX product.
Every SurgeX.
This isn't a finished product. This is the inside part that does most of the magic.
This is the guts.
Part of the magic.
So they make them in a variety of products, ranging from something you can put behind your television to make sure your television is going to be fine.
So there's a flat part product.
All the way to ones that can be put right at the electrical panel and cover a number of circuits.
Got it. Yeah, and that was the unique thing for us, that we saw a way of protecting the entire circuit going to that room and multiple rooms. And whether you start out with one and add some later, you can do that. You can have this box at the components and protect there. And it can work in conjunction with your previous line conditioners and filters and things that keep, although your devices also help with EMI and RF noise and other typical things. If you have an existing line conditioner, surge protector kind of device, you don't have to get rid of it. It works in conjunction with. And this just stops that device from really having to focus on big surges and really lets it do its conditioning job the way
it actually protects your MOV.
Yeah, protects that device. Actually, when you think about it, you're right.
So that's true. Our boxes all include RFI and EMI filtering. So the kinds of things that get into the electrical circuit, either radio transmitted or transmitted because some cords are crossing another cord, that type of thing. There's a lot of great boxes out there that do that. For instance, I know you sell AudioQuest as a brand,
Sure.
and they make tremendous filters and so on. So, and their box will work very well behind our box. So we often see them put in tandem. So our box first to prevent all the surges from getting into the system, and then other boxes to provide things like automation or additional filtering.
So we saw the evolution of premier line conditioning and surge protection boxes come from the commercial world. Bands, the first ones I saw were with bands and concerts and stuff, but studios and I'm sure in commercial applications like factories and those kind of things. I assume this product kind of came from the same.
It does. So they're in a lot of famous places. For instance, Dallas Stadium that has one of the world's largest video displays. That's all protected by SurgeX. The Hubble telescope, protected by SurgeX. You can name countless concert halls, events that are protected in that way. It found its way into home use more recently, and home use, it provides tremendous differences because, one, most homeowners were kind of dependent on their insurance to back them up, hopefully, if the surge device failed. Now, pretty much you don't have to worry. We have a lifetime warranty on the SurgeX product, and there's also a connected equipment guarantee that says for 5 years we'll even pay to replace your gear that's plugged in. So to a specific dollar.
Yeah, obviously. And so to be clear, this product, which evolves from the commercial world, and really it's surge elimination. I think that's the best way to say it. I mean, it's not let's hope that we can stop this one from coming through, or let's give up our lives and catch on fire so that we stop one from coming through. It literally just takes all that excess voltage and kind of makes it go away. I mean, that's essentially what it does. It's gone. And your gear is not seeing it. And if you're having a problem out there with having to reset your equipment all the time, your microprocessors all the time, and you're having a problem
that means you unplug stuff and you wait 15 minutes to an hour and you plug it back in. That's how I fix things.
Right. But if it happens once, I mean, it happened to us last night. So I mean, if it happens once, it's not the end of the world. But if you're continuously having a problem, then this probably is going to help with that a lot. And I mean, in our situation, we got a double whammy last night. For some reason last night, our projector would not turn on, would not react to control, would not react to the remote, would not react to me climbing on the ladder and pushing the power button. Our projector was locked up. It is plugged into a power device from a company that we don't deal with anymore, but with an older product. It was still locked up. It was just locked up. That's it. Nothing we did would unlock it. Fortunately, we called the little guys, and the tallest installer came out because he could reach over the top of the thing and unplug it and let us sit for 15 minutes, and the projector did come back on and cycle back on. And then during the night,
the whole neighborhood
was,
there was some transformer blew
somewhere.
I mean, that's what woke me up. I heard the big explosion.
and the control system was locked up. Everything was locked up. The microprocessors were locked, and believe me, we do have some pretty sophisticated normal devices on there to protect, but it didn't reset. It took a while, and then literally unplugging everything and redoing it and the rest. So I love the SurgeX concept. I love the concept of it.
And also the problem is when things lock up, you have an automation system, you have internet, you have a network throughout the house. You have all these devices. Which one's causing the problem? Right. I mean, that's part of a try this.
Well, if you cover your main circuits at the circuit.
Right. It would be wonderful to never have to worry about it.
We have two more technologies that we have available too that I'll just speak briefly about. And One of them is called COVS, COUVS. It's an acronym, and the other is called ICE, and that's also an acronym. So the COVS, what that is actually designed to help you with power grid issues where the power company accidentally delivers the wrong voltage. So this can happen in two ways. It can happen with too little voltage, or it can happen with too much voltage. So what it does basically is it's factory programmed, but we can actually go in and adjust it. It comes factory programmed to turn off the power if it reaches over 140 volts, and then restore it at 130.
Okay.
And then we also have it so it'll shut off at 80 volts and then restore at 90. So what that would do is at the high voltage, obviously we wouldn't want too much voltage going to our gear, so it'll prevent it from accidental damage from the power company. The low voltage would be our gear working too hard with not enough voltage, and some gear doesn't like that.
For sure.
And will actually fail. So that protects that and keeps it in the optimum range. The other one we have is called ICE, and basically that's a problem preventer. So let's say the little guys sold you a nice rack of gear for your home, and that rack of gear is well designed by them to run at 10 amperes of power draw, and you've got a 15 ampere outlet. Normally that would be fine. But let's say that some weird power glitch comes along like you experienced last night, and it turns on and off your power a few times. Well, what will happen is the gear will shut down and then restart, shut down, restart. And what happens is it's not really fully charged. So the last time it comes on, it actually draws a whole bunch of power from the wall to recharge its circuits. In doing so, it can exceed 15 amps and blow the breaker. Now, no amount of electronic help from the outside can fix it.
Sure.
You've got to call somebody in to restart things and figure out what's going on. In the case of our product, what it would do is when the gear turns back on, it would cushion and absorb all the initial charging and then go away. So it'll work at optimum conditions, but it'll crush the current right at turn on.
So are these separate products?
They are. They're available in various products we sell.
Got it.
So what you would do is choose the according models for the right thing for the installation.
All right, we should also mention...
Wait, are you saying that there are some SurgeX products that have the ICE and the COVS in them?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
All right.
We definitely have a customer who had severe electric issues.
Yeah.
And Commonwealth Edison said, I don't know what you're talking about,
Right,
and would
for
do
sure.
nothing. But that would have helped that
Well, your
person a lot.
I should also give credit to SurgeX for their diagnostic capabilities, right?
Yes, we have a separate tool called an Envision, and it was developed actually internally for a totally different use than residential diagnostics, but it works out really well for residential diagnostics. And what this tool does is the little guys have one of these. They can take one out to a home and with an adapter even remote into it and look at your electrical system over the internet.
Over a period of time.
Over a period of time. But basically what it's going to do is look at the entire electrical system as a whole for a bunch of issues. And one of the issues is voltage on neutral. Now, voltage on neutral is going to happen because gear leaks voltage onto neutral. Now, ideally, we'd want to stay somewhere around a half a volt. Now, I have seen various things as I've been out searching around, so I'll just share a story with you. I stopped into a dealer that's a friend of mine, and when I showed him the tool, he said, well, I play in a band in a church, and the church is a block away. I'm having all kinds of electrical problems there. Would you mind bringing the tool over and we'll check it out? So we did. Well, as I checked the church out, the spot that he stands in and plays guitar was fine. There was nothing really wrong. So I thought, well, he connects to the mixer, must be the mixer. So I go over and check the mixer, nothing there either. Now I notice under the mixer there's no amplifiers or anything. So I said, well, where's the gear? And he said, oh, it's in back. So we go in back, and there's two 20 amp outlet grids, four outlets each. And he's got a rack plugged into one of them. So I unplugged the rack and plugged my tool in and then plugged into the tool and checked it, and everything was fine. I'm like, where is the noise coming from? So I asked him, what's the other quad set of outlets for? And he said, oh, we're bringing over another rack. It's going to run the rest of the church. So that's intended for that. So I thought, well, that's good design, 220 amp circuits. So I unplug my tool and plug into that, and lo and behold, they have 65 volts on neutral.
Nice.
Now, 65 volts on neutral
lot.
is really
It's going
dangerous.
to affect a lot of stuff.
First of all, if he had plugged the rack in, it would have gone up in a puff of smoke.
Right.
The second thing is if a maintenance person had been vacuuming with a metal-handled vacuum cleaner and touched a light switch, potentially they could be gone too.
Right.
So it was a very dangerous situation. Lucky we were able to diagnose it. It was so bad that it was actually radiating noise into the other circuit.
Got it.
Now, we couldn't have found that without that tool. So that's a wonderful
That's
thing.
pretty amazing. Tom was pretty excited when he saw that the capabilities and frankly, it can give a sense of relief to a customer that hey, this thing is actually okay, or hey, there's a problem, let's fix it. Let's figure out, get an electrician in here and let's solve the problem.
Exactly. Now, I think there's really 3 applications for the tool. One application would be the little guys are going to do an installation on your home. They could hook up the tool and just make sure that your electrical system is great. Mm-hmm. If your electrical system doesn't show some issues in about 30 minutes, it's probably good.
Good.
The second application would be a system that was designed, but things have changed electrically in the home, and things aren't working like they used to. They can install the tool and remotely look at it and see when there's a problem. They can actually pull a log and sort it like data and look at
watch
it
it
and
over
go,
a day
oh
or
my
2 days or
goodness,
3
there's
days.
a problem that happens every day at 3 o'clock. Well, now we know that, so now we can start addressing that problem. Maybe it's from the power company, maybe it's from something in the home
Right.
that's
Maybe
failing.
Susie comes home at 3 o'clock every day from school and starts using whatever.
A power drill.
her power tools, yes.
And then the
a
third
welder.
application would be a customer that just wants the ultimate in protection. They can actually arrange with the little guys to install one of these and then have them keep a log of it, check it periodically,
Yeah.
and make
Yeah.
sure that
Pretty
they're
extreme.
not going to run into problems.
All right, so there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think the I know I keep coming back to surge elimination. To me is it's the holy grail. It's the right thing. It makes it go away, and it's no longer an issue, and it can solve so many heartaches. And
We should say, too, that it's not particularly expensive. So
the range of price on the
it
products.
sounds like it's expensive
That's
because
not
we're saying what it does.
The
It's not
range of
that
price on the
expensive.
products is from
$299 on up.
There you go. And the majority of the products that you would have in a situation from us, whether it's 500 or 700, and if you're doing the thing on the, we'll talk about it real quick on the at the circuit panel. There's a 4-pack, right? There's a 4-room one.
So let me explain that. We have 2 sizes of boxes. One box has 4 circuits it can treat, so 4 20-amp circuits or 4 15-amp circuits. The other box has a single circuit. So in the case of a typical home, I think what we find is that most of the electronics live on 4 circuits. Mm-hmm. So we could take one of those, put it on the electrical panel, identify the circuits, correct that so that they're all passing through our device, and in the future, anything that gets plugged into those circuits, no chance of a surge. The other thing that is unique about that is we can stack those. So if we had a home where it was much more expansive, for instance, there was a home I was involved with where it was 38,000 square feet. They had 6 of those panels in it.
There you go.
That makes sense because they have a lot of stuff
Sure.
in a lot of places.
All right, so lots of different stuff, lots of real cool things. I mean, I love this stuff. I love
Well, yeah,
I love
I mean,
that you
when
can
you think
protect
about
your gear.
you have insurance on your home. Something happens. Number one, you usually have a huge deductible that it doesn't cover.
That's
Number
a pain
two,
in the neck.
it's a pain to deal with the insurance company, and we've had where it just take months and months. And third, you're inconvenienced. You're hugely inconvenienced. Your insurance rates are going to go up
Right.
when you have a claim.
I think a great personal story might answer some of this. So I have been in the electronics industry since 1969, and I've been collecting gear. It's an addiction. And I have a lot of stuff at home. And I was out fast walking, and I got quite a ways away from my home and had to walk home in a storm. So the storm is getting worse and worse. It's starting to blow stuff at me. There's lightning all over the place. And as I approach my area, I'm about 3 blocks from my house. Lightning strikes a pole, and hits the pole and shatters a transformer, and there's stuff flying all over me, and I'm like, I'm going to die before I get home. So I'm walking really fast now, and as I start to move towards my house, I think, oh my gosh, that's my electrical grid. All my stuff at home. Oh my gosh. So I get home, and the first thing I notice is I walk in, the lights are on. So that's a good thing. And then I hear music playing. So I asked my wife, did anything happen? She said, well, the power went out twice real quick and then came back on. It came on kind of dim and then came up. And so I'm racing around the house checking all the gear.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you guys don't know is I have 13 pieces of SurgeX in my house. So all my critical stuff is plugged into SurgeX, and everything was fine. However, I have 3 ground fault interrupters in my house. They were all blown.
There you go.
So the surge definitely made it in.
It came in. All right, cool. All right, well, we want to thank Steve for coming by and spending some time with us. We want to thank all you guys for tuning in and let you know that we're going to do a surprise podcast Friday morning. Sometime. Surprise, no longer a surprise. We're going to do a special podcast Friday morning. We want you to tune into that one for sure. So that's this Friday coming up at 10 o'clock, which is the 21st.
Something like that.
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, Tom. Sorry, Tom.
9 o'clock.
Tom's going to walk through at 10.
Right.
All right, 9 o'clock, the 21st. We're going to do a very special podcast, and we want to make sure you guys are all tuned in, and we want to thank everybody for listening.
Right, and by the way, we don't just talk about SurgeX. The
We have
little
it in
guys
stock.
carries SurgeX.
We have it in stock, and we're excited that look, we've been doing line conditioning and surge protection for a long time. It's been part of our culture. It's been part of what we've preached since the beginning. With the evolution of Panamax to Monster to Furman and so on. AudioQuest pieces, amazing. Taking us to those next levels. This stuff just working in complement with it just to me makes all the sense in the world. Totally cool product. We were excited to be part of it. When Steve first approached, I said we don't need another. The last thing we need is another one of those.
Different.
We have a bunch of those things. Surge elimination. Okay, I'll listen. So anyway, that's it. All right, we want to thank everybody for listening. Thank everybody for tuning in, and we are the Little Guys, 191st and LaGrange Road, where Mokina meets I-80. Email us at info@thelittleguys.com and check us out at thelittleguys.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for paying attention to us, and we are
out of here. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Give the phone number of the store.
You're still on. You can say it.
Oh. Evie wants to tell you that the store phone number is
708-754-8844.
Yeah.